Man, sleep một vòng nap. Kéo ra. Wow. Trong ngủ bật hơn.
I literally want to cry. So if you didn't know, I have a sister, and her name's Ashley, and we both have boyfriends. And every night we both fall asleep on the phone with our boyfriends. So one day we're all hanging out and we're like just talking. And my sister's boyfriend looks at me and he's like, "You need to stop going into your sister's room in the middle of the night." And I look at him and I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't have a reason to go into her room. Like, I don't go into her room, especially in the middle of the night." Then my boyfriend hops in the conversation and he's like, No. He's like, "No, I hear Ashley go into Kayla's room every night and stare at her." So me and my sister both look at each other and we're like, "We don't go into each other's rooms, do we?" And we agreed that we do not. And they said this has been going on for months. So for months, somebody or something has been going into me and my sister's room for about 15 minutes every night and watching us sleep. But it only gets worse.
This is why you should never date multiple people at once. Part 2. So I was talking to like 4 guys, and I literally did not like them. But I was determined to keep my options open. I just didn't want another guy to play me. As the time progressed, me and this one guy, the one I really liked, started actually like dating. I mean, we didn't define the relationship, but it looked like a relationship. In my head, you have to like define the relationship. And my man's, he's not doing that. I even met his mom. Now, this is where it gets truly embarrassing. So one day I'm getting drinks with one of those other 3 guys, even though I'm basically in love with this guy. And we're sitting in this cafe having a good old time. And who walks in through the door? The mother of the guy I want to date. I should have saw this coming, but I was dumb. So my heart dropped and she freaking waved at me. Like, I see what you're about. And needless to say, she told him, and me and the one guy I really liked never talked again.
Top 5. Okay, so around 2 summers ago, me and my sister were just chilling in our room watching YouTube. My dad was in his room watching TV. And me and my sister haven't left our room in like maybe 2 hours. We were about to go to bed. And then my dad just starts calling our name. He's like, "Ashley, Kayla, get over here." I'm like, "Bro, what?" So we go into his room and he's like, "Which one of you just went into the kitchen?" Me and my sister look at each other. We're like, "None of us went in the kitchen." And he looks at us. He goes, "Yeah, one of you went into the kitchen. I know you did." And me and my sister look at each other and we're like, "We have been in our rooms the whole time." So my dad grabs his gun and he looks around the house. There's nobody there. So I'm like, "Yo, what did you see? Like, what did you see?" And he was like, "I saw a tall black figure walk into the kitchen. Kind of like what I saw in my mirror." So I go back to my room, I shut my door, and I try to go to bed. Around 11 o'clock, everybody in my house got woken up to a huge shatter from downstairs. I got up, my heart was in my stomach because I thought someone broke in because it sounded like a window breaking. My dad grabs his gun and we all go downstairs. And my lizard's 20-pound cage is on the floor broken.
Extremely creepy story time on how my aunt passed away. So a little background information. About 5 years ago, my aunt had gotten pregnant. It was really weird because a few months before she got pregnant, the doctor told her that she would never be able to have kids. And her husband had been trying for years. Well, I think like 2 weeks after the baby was born, it had passed away. And I don't really know why. For some reason, my mom won't tell me. Which is weird, but anyways, after that, my aunt just felt like a lot of things weren't going the way that she wanted them to in her life. So she decided to get closer with God. Well, every Sunday night, we go to my grandparents' house for a family dinner. And while we were there, my aunt starts going on this whole rampage. She said that God's not giving her the answers that she needs, and I don't really know what she means by answers. So my grandparents kick her out because she's acting like a psycho. Well, the same night at 3 a.m. in the morning, we hear a knocking on the door. And lo and behold, it's my aunt. So my mom lets her in because she feels bad and feels like she's the only one that will actually listen to my aunt. So she makes everybody sit at the kitchen table. She pulls out a Ouija board from her bag, like for part 2.
Story time on how my mom tried to convince me to have a threesome with her. So I had just graduated high school, and my mom was single for a while. Then she started dating this guy, which me and my brother really liked, but he was a few years younger than my mom. And honestly, we were happy for her. She was very depressed and miserable with my dad, so we were okay with it because she was finally happy. So like I said, I had just graduated high school, and I always said I never wanted to go to college, so I started working retail. One day while I was at work, my mom called me and said, "Hey, let's go out shopping." And who am I to say no? So after I got out of work, I met my mom, and we went lingerie shopping. That's what she specifically wanted to get. So we were at the store, and the first thing she said was, "Let's get matching sets," which was weird coming from my mom, but I said, "Fine, come back for part 2.
Here's another toxic ex-best friend story time. So me and this girl became friends through a play that we were doing in school. The plays at my school were always mad funny, so everybody on set was really cool. We hit it off like this. She offered to drive me home after the rehearsals and the practices. We would always go to get coffee after our practices, but after doing that for a while, we just started hanging out after school. Well, eventually we got close and I invited her to this slumber party that I was having. Should have never done that. And here's why. I also invited my boyfriend of 5 months and my other close friends. We were all having a really good time, you know, busting it down, throwing it back, talking shit, playing games, whatever. We specifically talked a lot of shit about her ex-best friend. We, as in everybody at the slumber party. Emphasis on we. Keep that in mind. At this point, it was getting really late. It was like 2 a.m. I ended up dozing off and falling asleep. Now, I woke up to some very slight clapping. And so I turn around. I see my best friend doing the spread eagle on my boyfriend. Like for part 2. Part 2 of my toxic ex-best friend story time. I wake up because I hear some clapping, and I turn around. I see my best friend doing the spread eagle on my boyfriend. Busted, wide open, no remorse. None. So my best friend at the time sees me looking at them, giving me a very much, "Oh, you wish that was you, huh?" look. You're probably wondering what was going through my mind at that moment. Well, murder wasn't on my mind, surprisingly. I had another plan. So once my boyfriend notices that I'm awake, he tries to push her off of him as if he wasn't just doing what he was doing, and tries to apologize, saying things like, "Oh, I didn't know what I was doing. You were asleep. I just couldn't help myself." You know, just a bunch of bullshit. And so I'm like, y'all putting on a show with the amazing actress that I am? Not gonna let me join? You know I always get the lead roles in the plays. Come on. Mind you, I was basically completely over my boyfriend at this point. I already started losing interest in him. This basically just did it for me. So I'm like, hello, lights, camera, action, let's get it going. And so I start to go down on him. Then I just take a big old bite right from his dick.
Story time about how I faked being pregnant for 6 months. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I'm in my late 20s and I have a really successful career. I make plenty of money, I own my own house, and I have 2 cars. But I've always failed in relationships. I had a long-term relationship in my early 20s, but I broke up with him because he just wasn't pulling his weight. I paid for our extravagant lifestyle. He would basically help me with my work and then expect me to pay him. Also, I paid the rent, I paid for the cars, and I paid for every single dinner date we ever had. We also had a joint bank account, which was a huge mistake on my part, because ultimately I was the one earning all the money. After 4 years of dating, I decided to break up with him and I told him to move out of my house. I felt free and I started dating right away. I met this guy one night and he was amazing. He complimented me all the time and made me feel really good about myself. But here's the problem, I tend to fall in love really easily. After that night, that guy and I would talk every single day. He would come over to my place and we would have dinner, but the good thing about this guy